Dumelang Sanbonani, and well, it's a wrap. Huh? Yep, we have just done a series of videos that talk about spirituality, training your intuition, learning how to self-care, self-love, and how to identify the key and important things about your life. And that series in particular was called Enlighten My Spirit. I'm your host with the most, Gogo Moyo, and I'll be hosting you for the last time on this series today. Stay tuned. For one, feel like the common thread of this particular series was about self-discipline. Because you can go on the net, you can learn and research about just about anything that has to do with spirituality. But at the end of the day, it's what you do with it. And most importantly, it's your attitude towards you achieving the greatness that you want to achieve in your life. Yes, Gogo taught us all these things, but at the end of the day, what do you do with the information that has been shared with you? And also, are you able to be accountable to yourself? Are you able to call yourself out and ask, yo, ma, you didn't wake up this morning. Are you expecting that miracle to happen on its own? Or are you going to be an active agent of change in your life? I mean, we went through a lot. 2020 showed us flames. It didn't matter whether you were rich or you were poor, you were educated or not. It really made sure that it left a dent in our spirits, in our homes. We've lost many great and amazing people, even loved ones, from the fact of the pandemic. So because of that, are you going to continue to squander your life and act like tomorrow is actually guaranteed? Or are you going to actively make sure that you bring about the change that you need in your life? I know in a personal capacity, it had made me realize that anything that I thought was going to be here tomorrow, it was actually a joke I was kept on telling myself repetitively, only to find that I had to move with the times. One of the things that I actively started doing a lot more was do more lives and engage with the people that are sitting at home. Because you know how it is, an idle mind is the devil's playground. So to help you guys not to be entrenched in the extra lows that you've gone through, I've tried to engage you just a little bit more, and especially inviting you into my home and the more lax side of my personality. Also, anybody who has a business, a shop front, that was expecting customers to walk through their doors, all of a sudden, it was quiet. Nobody came to inquire about your services. Nobody came to want to touch or feel or smell your products. Everything literally moved online. So are you one of those people that stayed entrenched in how we used to work before? Or did you feel like this was a moment for you to go back to school? And by school is the school of life. Being able to communicate with other people and ask, how are you surviving this epic pandemic that we're going through? It really took over the globe. It left no one spared and made sure that it had lessons for each and every one of us. Do you guys remember the hashtag lit lockdown? Yep, there was a series within a series teaching you about how to be independent, about how to start moving more physically and being able to be more Spotified than being a couch potato and being wallowed down by the misery of the energy of this virus. Yeah, I taught a lot of things, actually. I taught you a lot of things. And one of the things that were top of mind were part of the self-care regime, where I taught you how to futa, how to palaza, how to meditate, how to use essential oils, how to even meditate and use candles to manifest the life you want to live. I know for right now, this is a time where there's a drive actually that's going on, where it goes by the name of 14 days of steaming. And because you were fortunate enough to be enlightened previously, 14 days is actually nothing to you. We've been practicing this very ritual for as long as the lockdown began. What are the findings or the learnings that you had in the particular series? What was your takeaway? Did you feel like you were more empowered to fight this deadly virus because Gogo put you on? I know my brother got sick. He got COVID. We isolated him. We made sure that we gave him all the necessary vitamins that he needed. And most importantly, we never let him go without a day of steaming twice. And don't forget the dangers of steaming, guys. You do actually get dehydrated. So make sure that you actually hydrate your body and help yourself be able to help your body to fight the virus. But most importantly, you are in charge of this virus. You don't have to fall victim. So if you're in a household with elders who are high risk, or pregnant women who are high risk, or anyone that's been actually taking medication, make sure to put them onto this challenge because you could save a life. As part of the Lit Lockdown series, you guys had a lot of questions. Firstly, you were asking about the migration from face-to-face readings to us actually conducting our readings online. We had no choice because we still had to service our people. Some people were dealing with depression and anxiety because they were uncertain about their jobs and their futures, considering how many people lost their jobs. And also, one of the other questions that you had, you spoke a lot about the sacred spaces that we visit to help ourselves become better attuned with our spirituality. The rivers, the dams, the waterfalls, the caves, the hikes that we could no longer take. Those are very important, and I absolutely hope that you have learned the lesson in terms of being able to preserve nature around you and making sure that you take full advantage of it when you actually have the freedom to move around under the different restrictions and the different levels. Another thing that I could actually speak to about it is how you wanted to find out about what our ancestors had to say about this particular narrative. You wanted to know about, is this legit going on in terms of, is there an actual virus in the air that is actually affecting us? Is it man-made? How much of it is it going to affect our lives? And actually, badimu baringi. And in that context, I can happily say that Badim Barona needed us to pull ourselves towards ourselves. We fill our lives with so many activities. We could be busy from the moment we wake up till the moment we put our head down on our pillows, only to find that we were actually not productive at all, but we were absolutely in motion. And sometimes you being busy does not necessarily translate to you being an actually productive person. And in the same breath, I could say Badimu were very excited to learn, or rather teach us about ourselves in the still of our homes. We went back to managing our relationships with our family members very differently. We were forced to sit down and have difficult conversations, or just conversations that otherwise we wouldn't have. Because Umama wakes up in the morning, she goes that way to work. Ubaba wakes up in the morning, he goes that way to work. You wake up and attend to your life, whether it's school or it's work. But now finally, you had to share a living space for more than the hours that you're usually used to. Now you share your internet. You eat a lot more because you spend a lot more time at home. So the duties and the chores that you otherwise would share in the house, now they're actually being forced for you to be more active and more conscious of yourself and the people around you. And you're just not moving around and doing things all willy-nilly as you used to do. One most important thing that I learned as a conversation from Badimu was that we needed to go back to the teachings of our forefathers, our ancestors, how they lived their lives, how they used to preserve their health. And also being able to have conversations with yourself that you manage your own mental health. If you guys missed all of these, the series is still up. But importantly, you have to watch it for all the right reasons, because there's homework in each and every one of these videos. We don't just talk about it. It gives you a chance for you to sit back and reflect. How are you adding to the narrative? What are you getting out of the conversation? And are you becoming a better person because of it? Do you remember the video I created where I was helping you prepare yourself for a spiritual reading. And now since we've moved to being online, how much of that does it change, Gogo? Because you taught us about how to prepare in the physical sense, but actually it's a mindset thing, because you start by creating and setting your intention from where you are, homebound, before you even start to interact with the next person. So with that said, you are still supposed to uphahle mosuka endlini. Make sure that you speak to your ancestors and tell them exactly what kind of information you are looking to find from speaking to the light worker that you're going to be seeing. Whether they're mediums, tarot card readers, izangoma, prophets, the works. It doesn't matter who you ultimately speak to, because the energy is embodied in self. So if you're going to move the responsibility away from yourself in setting the energy, then you should definitely be open to receiving any kind of piece of information that's given to you, whether it's actually relevant or not. And then there was the series of candles. We taught you about the introduction to candles, what it's composed of, what it's made up of, its different dimensions, and all the ingredients that make a candle up. We then talked about the different colors, from white all the way to black, to red, to gold, to all of the colors were described in absolute detail, even as to when to use each color, depending on what you want to manifest. We then spoke about the different candle behaviors. You know, when your flame decides to dance about, or your wax decides to drip on one side, or if it sparks. All of those were part of our conversation. And most importantly, we even went a step further and showed you who is the king of the market when it comes to the longest burning candle. With that said, I hope for you in this particular series, you got to realize how much power actually sits in your own very hands. You don't necessarily have to include other people, but you are the driving force of your own life. Now, because we have stepped into a new year and you have been taught about the greatness of a candle, what is the next step for you? Where do you go from this point on? Do you even know? Well, this is a part where you are supposed to be more intentional, very thought-driven and purpose-driven in anything that you do, because you have to realize the importance that tools will only remain tools until you direct your energy into a particular direction to help you become a top-notch, better level, top-tier person about your life. Candles are important because they reflect our energies. Whether you lit it with a soul heart, a clear perspective, or a very intentional mindset. Either way, this candle is going to be very reflective of you. So the relationship that you keep with the different tools that help you, that enable you to be able to connect more, it becomes almost like it doesn't matter what the tool is, because everything sits on you and your spirit. Don't for any day feel like you have to take these tools for granted, because they really are true enablers. But also, don't move the importance of manifesting onto the particular tool that you forget that you are such a driving force in terms of how your life pans out. So remember that video where we spoke about sacred spaces and about hygiene, also about the way you treat your temple is going to be one sure way to help you increase the positivity in your life. I want to particularly speak about the importance of preserving the natural spaces that we visit. I mean, we take along milk cartons, candles in their packets, boxes of matches, impepo, snuff and its containers. We take just about anything, even ilwane. Particularly, chickens are a popular trend when it comes to the kind of animal that you bring. And I want to bring it to your attention that we are destroying our own environment. The same ones that we visit and for refuge and to get us back to connected to our ancestors. So please don't take this for granted. Make sure that you clean up after yourself. Make it a trend that between when and abangani bakho or within impande yagini, you know that every time we perform a ritual, we clean up after ourselves. Because if you preserve that space, it'll always be there for you to rely on, for you to always run back to whenever you feel like the world is a harsh place or it's a heavy place to navigate. This also includes umsamo wakho endlini. Tidy it up, sweep, mop, change out the cloth, make sure that that space is inviting, because you are hosting one of the most important conversations of your life, and that's connecting to your maker as well as your ancestors. Don't for any day take that for granted. And then there was the time when you tagged along when I took my 32nd birthday holiday trip, right? Remember that? The champers at the beach, the long drives, the physical activities that we took, those were all important. And that was a clear way for me to remind you that as hard as we work, we have to remember to take care of ourselves. We have to reward ourselves in many different ways, and to also remove ourselves from the situations where we are in every day, where we can perhaps take life for granted. I know that this particular trip was very enlightening for me, and it was something that I particularly needed, whether I could admit to it or not. Sometimes we feel like we put an excuse or a tag towards something and feel like that's the reason why we're doing it. So therefore, I'm turning 32, I went on a holiday, therefore my whole trip was about celebrating the 32 years of life. Meanwhile, it actually gave me a chance to rest, to look at the work I've done, to look at how I've impacted the world around me and how much that speaks to who I am. It also helped me fuel my fire, because I came back refined, recharged, and energized to come up with new and exciting things about my life. It's important to take these moments, because as hard as we may work, we need to pat ourselves on the back, on our backs, and realize that money comes and goes. We're not saying squander it, but it also has to work in servitude of self, because you cannot work as hard as you do and still be lacking of experiences and memories where you can actually say, wow, I actually had a bomb ass time. So please, I encourage you and I implore you that as hard as you're going to work and all the ideas you're going to churn out and the effective machine ultimately that you're going to be, you cannot be any good to anyone else unless if you take the time out and really nurture your spirit. Challenge yourself. Go to places you've never been. Go meet people that you've never met, because it allows you to interact with new faces and it actually brings a new perspective on one's life. One of the most trendy videos was the video about sex and spirituality. I noticed that in the comments, you guys had a lot of thank yous that I didn't demonize sex, that I spoke about it in a nurturing way, and for the fact that even if you have bad experiences, they also can be remedied. I think on a public scale, a lot of people look at sex because when we grow up, our parents say, stay away from boys, stay away from girls. Don't be doing and they're not necessarily teaching you about what the exchanges will mean for you, how they'll alter your behavior going forward, or even how they will portray love. And just like the topic of a period for girls with our parents, some girls never ever had the conversation. It just said, when you start bleeding, stay away from boys. Meanwhile, it's one of the most beautiful things that actually speak to our bodies as women, because it's a self-cleansing moment. It shows how healthy we are, because for as long as you see it monthly, it affirms the fact that your body is exactly where it's supposed to be and is behaving in the right way. But now, if sex is going to be spoken about in this particular way, then what does it, why is something so desirable, so fulfilling, and so exciting for one's spirit and soul that it needs to be demystified in such a way? I think also one of the conversations I can have or a comment I can make about it is that we are afraid of really expressing ourselves. We are afraid of being seen as this really sex-driven individual. I mean, if you look at social media, the timeline is full of bums, busted challenges. It's about like nakedness and about bearing it all to the public to see. Our bodies are beautiful. Whether you've got a six-pack or you have lumpy thighs or you're a fully figured person, your body was created with divine excellence and beauty. And no one should ever make you feel like you shouldn't embrace that. We gym because it helps us improve the state of our bodies, not necessarily because we're ashamed of how we're shaped. And it's important for you to have a healthy relationship with your body, because when you now step into social media, it will translate in terms of what you perceive yourself to be and how you perceive your body to be. So if you carry it with pride, some of these things will actually fall away for you and they won't be as demeaning or take away from the smart, intelligent person that you are, just because you're able to be brave enough to show your long, beautiful legs. So sex is beautiful. Sex is actually how we all got into the world. No one came in a plane and got dropped down by, what's that thing? A seagull. That's a seagull, right? The one that's narrated, we grew up knowing, brings you down in its beak or in a basket and it delivers you to your parents. No, that's all stories that we grew up hearing because we were supposed to be channeled in a particular way where we don't even ever think at a young age that mom and dad came together, they love each other, and in part of them expressing their love to each other, I was born. So no, on this particular channel, we're not going to vilify sex. We're going to add to the demystification of the fact that sex is a beautiful form of love and an act that we share with people that are important to us, that we open ourselves up to. We don't use sex as a weapon. We don't use it as a tool that when I fight with my boyfriend, I'm no longer going to have sex with him. We made a promise when you went into a relationship that you're going to be respecting and honoring of your partner. And if you're going to be using such things against your partner, it now speaks and shows a different side of you, that actually you are using this as a tool and now you want to gain control and power over your loved one. Meanwhile, your fight was separate. Your love remains. You guys can actually grow to become better individuals because you're able to move on to these different conversations without actually playing a god over your partner's life. So yes, we promote sex on this channel. And that's why it was a popular video. All 39,000 of you watched this video. You shared it. You made sure that other people knew about the depths and the consequences and the responsibilities of being a young and sexually active individual. What is the Note Gang? This is a select group of individuals. They weren't selected by anyone else but themselves. They chose to find a platform that they resonated with. They went on to click the subscribe button and most importantly the bell icon to make sure that anytime Gogo drops some gems, they were the first people to find out. And that is what makes up the Note Gang. So if you're one of those people, kudos to you, a high five to you, and thank you so much for actually doing what you do for the channel and for being a person who's loud and proud to speak about African belief systems and not shying away and privately watching the videos so that the history of your viewings doesn't show that you actually are affiliated to people like myself. And I thank you for that. You know, the beauty of being on a social media platform, especially owning a channel and being the one who is the gatekeeper in terms of the kind of conversations that I had. One of my take-homes and takeaways was the fact that my Note Gang was able to teach me about certain experiences they had. Part of the comments that you left on the different videos actually fueled me to come up with more content for you. It made me feel energized to research more, because I knew that there was someone sitting out there struggling with something and felt like maybe there isn't anyone who can help me with this. But because you were able to be so open to sharing and being so transparent and honest, you actually helped me learn a few things. You also made the space a lot safer, because you also encouraged other people to leave their thoughts and to leave their experiences. And that's essentially what a community is made up of. The thoughts I have about this particular series is, one thing I learned is consistency is everything, you know? And when you love something, you really won't find the excuses, but you'll find the reasons why to continue. And in spite of the different challenges of having to build content far in advance, because we won't necessarily show when the lockdown is going to end or the different levels are going to change. My team and I were challenged, but it didn't pose it as a threat. It posed it as a challenge for us to really see, do you really want to do this thing, or are you just doing it for the hype? There's a passage that I want to read to you, and it's from a book by an Arnold Mindell, right? The name of the book is called Working on Yourself Alone. And it's actually, I feel like it's very aligned with what the channel has been about. It has been teaching you about self and how self can be an enabler or one that destroys about anything that self wants to achieve, right? And it is called the warrior's element. A warrior-like discipline is helpful in working alone on oneself and getting through a difficult spot. Discipline is a subtle thing which you cannot develop by simply being interested. Discipline is an inner drive which pushes you. The warrior's discipline is connected to wonder and love. It begins with wonder and curiosity. If something attracts you, if you love it, you'll find the necessary discipline to study it and discover its nature. If human nature does not attract you, you will always find reasons for avoiding the discovery of yourself and others. For some, discipline is reminiscent of harsh parental control. For these people, self-discipline is a chore they would rather avoid. They complain that fatigue or lack of time prevents them from disciplining themselves. Yet enforced discipline and working against fatigue are not the kind of discipline I am talking about. If your process fascinates you, you will become aware of the continuum of awareness of the process which organizes existence. The process itself will fascinate you with its power, and this excitement creates discipline. Many of us learn discipline because we're in love with this universe. We have such wondrous beginner's minds that we can meditate without identifying it as such. We focus on people and objects around us. Belief and wonder guide us into a quiet way to do things normally associated with highly disciplined people. If you ask them how they made insightful and powerful decisions, they either do not know or may answer as one person did. As one person would say, my heart just knew. So in that breath, discipline is very important. What we decide for ourselves is very important. What we spend our time doing defines who we are and the depth of how far we're willing to go. Sometimes you may just say, my heart just knew it. I didn't know in the beginning of GMTV what it was supposed to be about. It started with a series called Ezasendumbeni, where I spoke about African belief systems and most importantly about Ubungoma. I was answering your questions. Soon after that, and when that series ended, I had to look deeper and I thought, let me teach holistically on spirituality. My heart just knew to gravitate towards it. I have people in my comments, in my DM saying, Gogo, I had a dream about you and you were doing a palm reading on me. I know privately I have a keen interest in learning how to broaden my intuitive abilities and not to just rely on just tools, but for me to become a tool. But now think about it this way. This person didn't know that I have such a keen interest in learning about palmistry, But this is what the universe's way of affirming me that yes, ma, go on. Anything that you can think about, that you dream about, if it sits long enough in your consciousness, in your subconsciousness, in your heart, it's beckoning for you to exercise and to move into action. And that was a beautiful way that the universe went on to affirm me. And I would like to encourage you today. Don't sleep on yourself. Don't wait for someone to give you a high five or to motivate you to do things in a particular way. You are all you need. You don't need heavy forms of machinery or equipment. The equipment resides in between your ears. The thought begins with you. Solve for problems that you have on a day-to-day. Don't even be as extra innovative in the way you think. Just start with things that bother you your everyday, that you need answers to on an everyday level. Host people, gather people, start the conversations going. At the end of the day, you'll know why your heart just knew. If life doesn't please you, if there's any part of your life that doesn't please you, whether it's work, relationships, or the conversations that you have with other people around you, or the environment itself, you're not a tree. Move. You can change things. You have the power within your hands. You love what other people have, yet you have the same potential as they do. What are you spending your time on? And if you're really going to say you love the platform, continue to share. Continue to invite people onto the platform. Make sure that other people know about this very space that we have. I mean, we're so enriched with the information that goes on here, but we're not bold enough to actually be loud and proud about the things we believe in. Life is precious, guys. If anything we've learned this year is life is very fickle. So don't sleep on yourself. Don't take it for granted, and make sure that you are in the driving force of your life. Thank you for watching this particular series, and I will be introducing a new series to you guys soon, which is called Lesedi Podcasts, which I will be hosting, and I'll be profiling and interviewing many of the greats that we have in our country, from healers to artists to musicians to actresses. We want to know what's on their mind, especially on a spiritual context, because you look at people and you admire them from afar, but you don't necessarily realize that we all have to do the same groundwork. Thank you for tuning in to this particular series called Intuition Starts With Me. Thokozani.